A former aide to then-President Trump is being sentenced today for contempt of Congress. We have the details. Texas invokes its constitutional right to defend its border, stating it won't vacate any border areas. Some congressional Democrats want President Biden to take control over Texas National Guard. The mother of a teen who was convicted of a mass shooting at his Michigan high school is on trial, facing manslaughter charges. After inspections following a mid-air emergency with Boeing 737 MAX 9, the Federal Aviation Administration gives the go-ahead for the model to return to service, but it will not allow the aircraft maker to expand the 737 MAX production. American lawmakers share a message while in Taiwan. They're predicting action from China to heap pressure on the island before its new president-elect gets sworn in this spring. Tesla stocks fall nearly 11% in today's trading after CEO Elon Musk said sales growth would slow this year. He's also warning that Chinese EV firms will demolish rivals without trade barriers. And a legendary bodybuilder speaks about his journey from being a child abuse victim to becoming a world champion. We'll have his amazing story. Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. We have breaking news to report. One of former President Trump's aide who was convicted of failing to cooperate with a congressional investigation is being sentenced today. Prosecutors want a judge to sentence Peter Navarro to 6 months in prison and pay a $200,000 fine.
The United States versus Peter Navarro has turned out to be a very important landmark constitutional case that is going to resolve important issues about the constitutional separation of powers, as well as the integrity, efficiency of presidential decision making. We'll see what happens today. As Donald Trump loves to say, let's see what happens. Be happy to share with you my thoughts after this.
Opening arguments began today in the case of one of the parents of mass school shooter Ethan Crumbley.
The evidence will prove that by the time this gun was bought, the school shooter was in a downward spiral that had begun months before. The evidence will also show you that Jennifer Crumbley was aware of that. Despite her knowledge of his deteriorating mental crisis, despite her knowledge of his growing social isolation, despite the fact that it is illegal for a 15-year-old to walk into a gun store and walk out with a handgun by himself, this gun was gifted.
Jennifer Crumbley is pleading not guilty to involuntary manslaughter for her and her husband, James' alleged roles in their son's rampage. Ethan is in prison for the rest of his life without any chance of parole for the November 2021 shooting. 4 students were killed and 7 others wounded when he opened fire at his Oxford, Michigan high school. Prosecutors say Jennifer was aware of her son's mental state the day of the attack, and she chose to do nothing when alerted by the school hours before the incident occurred. James Crumbley's trial began in March. They both face up to 15 years each in prison if convicted. Ethan Crumbley was 15 years old at the time of shooting. Texas is not vacating border areas, now claiming its constitutional right to defend itself. Political leaders from around the country are now picking sides, either defending President Biden or the state of Texas. NTD's Arian Pasdar has a border update.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott on Wednesday published this statement, saying he will invoke Texas constitutional authority to defend and protect itself. Now, this statement by Abbott comes after multiple requests from the Biden administration to vacate the border. However, Abbott says he will not do that because the Biden administration fails to stop illegal immigration. And officials across the U.S. are now reacting to this latest development. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says Texas is upholding the law while Biden is flouting it. Florida will keep assisting Texas with personnel and assets. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem says Abbott is right to invoke Texas constitutional authority to defend itself. saying that the Biden administration has created a national security crisis and put Americans in danger. Democrats, meanwhile, are calling on Biden to seize control of the Texas National Guard. Texas Congressman Joaquin Castro says POTUS needs to establish sole federal control of the Texas National Guard now. And Democratic Congressman Greg Casar, also from Texas, agrees with his colleague. Ariane Pastar, NTD News.
Republican Senator Bill Hagerty held a press conference this morning with his colleagues to introduce why they need a bill to tackle the current border crisis.
Video recently emerged. The Democrat congressman, Yvette Clarke from Brooklyn, New York, explaining to us why. She said very clearly, the quiet part out loud, she needs these illegal immigrants for the purposes of redistricting. Let me explain this. In our nation today, we count the number of people, not the number of citizens, for the purpose of allocating congressional districts and electoral votes. What we're seeing is the Democrats abusing this system by creating sanctuary cities in blue states that are literally losing citizens every day to states like mine. What's happening is cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York are acting as magnets to attract illegal immigrants. Those immigrants are then being counted in the populations of California, Illinois, New York, and other cities for the purposes of allocating congressional districts and electoral votes. As a result, the limousine liberal in California has much more power in their vote than the single mom in Tennessee.
You can find the link of this press conference on our website, ntd.com. The Federal Aviation Administration approving an inspection process that's going to allow airlines to fly their Boeing 737 MAX 9 planes again. That's as the CEO of Boeing met behind closed doors with lawmakers on Capitol Hill yesterday as the company comes under intensified scrutiny.
Boeing 737 MAX 9 planes could soon be back in the air. The Federal Aviation Administration approved inspection criteria for the plane that would return it to service. But the agency also took aim at Boeing, saying the Alaska Airlines incident must never happen again. The FAA said Boeing can't expand production of MAX models until all quality control issues have been resolved. The agency gave no estimate of how long that limitation would last. Alaska Airlines CEO Ben Minicucci criticized Boeing in an interview with NBC News. He said the in-flight blowout should never have happened.
We found some loose bolts on many of our MAX 9s. So those,
Many?
Yeah. So those are things that are going to be rectified through the inspection process.
Federal inspectors are on site at Boeing's plant in Renton, Washington, where the 737 MAX 9s are made. Company executives are pausing production at that facility today to focus on quality control. Alaska Airlines plans to have its grounded planes back in service by Friday, and United Airlines is aiming for Sunday.
North Korean military leaders say they're testing a new cruise missile that is able to launch nuclear warheads. It's the second launch this year for the communist regime. In a statement from the government, today's missile launch did not pose a threat to its neighbors in South Korea. The North Korean government claims the missile is capable of targeting Japanese and American military bases in the Pacific. A South Korean military analyst believes the rise of experimental system tests could signal a shortage of missiles in North Korea. He says it's because the country is suspected of shipping materials to Russia for use against Ukraine. And more pressure expected from Beijing. Earlier today, a group of U.S. lawmakers is sending out a warning from a news conference in Taipei, saying they predict action from Beijing ahead of the upcoming inauguration of its president-elect.
We anticipate over the next 3 months before the inauguration that we'll see Beijing choose to do some things. My message to Beijing is don't do that. Let's take a different path forward to maintain the status quo, to maintain peace and prosperity in the region.
But it's also important for everybody to know that the United States also stands with Taiwan. And that's why we decided to come here now.
Alongside that message of support, the U.S. Navy sailed its first warship through the sensitive Taiwan Strait on Wednesday since the island's elections. Navy officials said the destroyer USS John Finn's journey demonstrates commitment to upholding freedom of navigation, adding that no member of the international community should be intimidated or coerced into giving up their rights and freedoms. Beijing lashed out over the move, accusing U.S. voyages in the region of causing, quote, trouble and provocation on China's doorstep. The Chinese regime claims Taiwan as its own, despite never having ruled it. A new report highlighting Chinese election interference in the U.S. 2022 midterm elections. Declassified intelligence reveals Chinese Communist Party's meddling took many forms. Among them, retaliation against U.S. lawmakers promoting divisive content online and even impersonating American voters. Congressman Tom Tiffany told the Epoch Times that Communist China has shown time and time again that they will stop at nothing to interfere in America's elections, and that the Biden administration needs to take a harder line on PRC meddling and espionage. For in-depth coverage on midterm election interference, watch NTD's China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer tonight at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. Elon Musk says Chinese car makers are on course to demolish Western rivals. The Tesla chief says that will be the outcome if trade barriers aren't imposed. His comments come as firms like BYD make inroads into global markets.
The Chinese brand overtook Tesla as the biggest maker of electric vehicles in the final quarter of last year. It undercuts overseas rivals on prices and offers a wider range than many. Musk says Chinese firms like it are now the most competitive, and he predicts they will have major success worldwide. Last year, Tesla began cutting prices in a bid to fight back. Musk says his company will also start production of a new model next year, with Reuters sources saying it will be cheaper than current cars. His latest comments come after Tesla reported slowing sales growth and adjusted earnings that fell short of analyst forecasts. But his calls for tariffs could fall on receptive ears. The EU is already weighing up whether to protect its car firms from Chinese rivals that Brussels says benefit from state aid. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has said he won't allow China to dominate the industry. And his expected rival in this year's presidential election, Donald Trump, has said he would increase tariffs on all imports.
And Tesla shares fell nearly 11% on Thursday after Musk warned sales growth would slow this year. President Biden winning his fight against House Republicans over EV charging stations. On Wednesday, he vetoed a bill so that federally funded EV charging stations can use imported iron and steel as long as they're assembled on U.S. soil. Adding more EV charging stations nationwide is a priority for the Biden administration. A survey shows many are hesitant to buy electric vehicles because charging stations are not as widespread. The infrastructure law has earmarked over $7 billion to build charging stations nationwide, but the law also requires stations built with federal money to use iron and steel produced in the U.S. The White House issued a waiver on that rule, but House Republicans and some Democrats fought back, introducing a bill to kill the waiver. They argue it hurts American companies and empowers China to control American energy infrastructure. The White House argues that if the waiver is killed, the administration would have to use Buy America rules from the 1980s, and that doesn't require domestic manufacturing for many goods. When we come back, the U.S. economy remained shockingly robust in the fourth quarter to close out a remarkably strong 2023 as consumers and businesses continue to spend. The Centers for Disease Control creates an alert warning of the side effects of the COVID-19 vaccines and heart inflammation, but does not send it out. We have the details in an exclusive report out from our partners at the Epoch Times. From child abuse to champion, we have an incredible story of how one world-renowned overcame obstacles to achieve his dreams. That and more after the break.
Hey everyone, it's me, Sebastian, and it is a beautiful day today. We have so much to be grateful for, so just remember, if you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours. I just love inspiring people to be the best they can be, and the reason I'm able to inspire so many people is because people like you who inspire me with your support of Shriners Hospitals for Children. Since I was little, I've broken 100 bones and I've had 19 surgeries. Shriners Hospitals for Children was with me every step of the way. But more than that, they've given me the confidence to know I can do whatever I set my mind to. Like right now, I've set my mind to sharing my smile with you. Did you get it?
Because of people like you, I can play the violin.
I can play piano.
I can understand.
The help I get is only possible because of caring people like you who pick up the phone and call the number on your screen to make your monthly gift.
And when you call or go online right now to donate $19 a month or more, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a thank you and a reminder of all the smiles you're bringing to kids' faces every day.
Kids like me.
And me.
And me.
And me.
So what are you waiting for? You can inspire kids like me by visiting loveshriners.org. After all, you can't help everyone, but you can help someone. So let's go!
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving. Join me and bring a smile to the world with your monthly gift today.
Please call now. If operators are busy, please call again or go to loveshriners.org right away.
Join me and bring a smile to the world.
Freedom is not free, and neither is the truth. In order to bring you the facts, our reporters are out there on the front lines getting the true story. Some of them served 10 years of prison in China. We've been censored on social media. Our Hong Kong printing offices were set on fire, and we've been repeatedly attacked by the Chinese Communist Party. But no matter what, we believe that you deserve the truth, and so we'll continue to bring the truth to life. Head on over to getepic.com and try honest journalism that is based in truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
The U.S. economy grew at a shocking pace in the fourth quarter. Thursday, the Commerce Department is reporting the gross domestic product rose at a 3.3% rate from October through December. It's down from the nearly 5% rate from July to September, but it easily trounced economic expectations. A large portion of the growth came from consumer and business spending. Still, the report shows the U.S. economy has cooled in recent months. It's unclear if it's enough, though, to keep the Federal Reserve on track to cut interest rates anytime soon. Sales of new U.S. single-family homes increased strongly in December, boosted by declining mortgage rates and a persistent shortage of previously owned houses on the market. New home sales rebounded 8% to a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 664,000 units last month, the Commerce Department's Census Bureau said on Thursday. November's sales pace was revised higher to 615,000 units from the previously reported 590,000 units. Monthly sales rose in the Northeast, Midwest, and the densely populated South, but fell in the West. In an email obtained exclusively by our partners at the Epoch Times, the Centers for Disease Control states it did not issue a public warning about the side effects of COVID-19 vaccines and heart inflammation during the height of the pandemic in 2021. The alert would have made doctors and healthcare professionals be aware of the potential risks for heart inflammation or myocarditis when using the Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines. The Epoch Times found internal documents showing CDC administrators were preparing to release the warning, however, decided against it out of fear of creating public panic. Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin is the top Republican on the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee's Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. He calls the CDC's decision to not issue the alert inexcusable and malpractice. Florida Surgeon General has called for a halt in the use of COVID-19 mRNA vaccines. In an interview with the Epoch Times in France, French famous microbiologist supports the surgeon's decision, saying he found anomalies on how those vaccines interact with human cells. NTD's David Vivez has the story.
The state of Florida's Surgeon General, Dr. Joseph R. Ladapo, sent a letter to the FDA earlier this month, expressing concerns about nucleic acids contaminants and billions of DNA fragments per dose in Pfizer and Moderna's COVID-19 mRNA vaccines. Ladapo contends these contaminants pose potential risks to human health. In response, the FDA labeled Ladapo's claim misleading, asserting confidence in the vaccine's safety and effectiveness. This claim, though, has found the support of renowned French microbiologist Professor Didier Raoult. Raoult, the former president of the Mediterranean Infection Institute, emphasizes discrepancies in vaccine DNA content. In a recent post on X, Raoult questions the advertised DNA content, stating the vaccine contains 100,000 copies of DNA plus the ability to enter the cell's nucleus.
We have made a lot of measures at the Institute. We have measured the importance of DNA in Pfizer's vaccine. And there are quantities of DNA that are not compatible with what is advertised in the vaccine. And as this DNA is encapsulated in a lipid capsule, this means that it enters the cells, and we don't know what it does in the cells.
Raoult, while supporting vaccines, notes unusual side effects overlooked in the rollout.
Normally, a vaccine like this would have taken 2 years to evaluate properly, and 1 million people to test before saying it could be used on pregnant women, for example.
Raoult expresses concern about French government's decision regarding the rollout of COVID vaccines, such as the refusal to consider other treatments and to keep doctors away from treating patients. He says he hopes these issues would be more openly addressed in the country, but the question is currently closed.
I don't know where the truth will find its way. Maybe this will be in the United States, where members of parliament are much more active than they are in France. Personally, I'm very sorry that there isn't as strong a debate in France as there is in the United States at the moment, or as there is in England, where we can see that Boris Johnson has some explaining to do.
Raoult also cites a study showing no significant impact of lockdowns, masks and vaccines on the COVID pandemic in Europe. Seasonality, the study claims, ended the outbreak. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
To the average person, bodybuilding can seem superficial, but the sport is about much more than muscle. Beneath an athlete's chiseled physique is often a story, and sometimes the beginning of a story that ends up shaping a career. NTD's Andrew Thomas spoke with an award-winning American bodybuilder to learn more about what it takes to become a champion.
Tony Pearson was born in 1957 in Memphis, Tennessee. After his parents divorced, his father left him with his great-aunt, a violent alcoholic.
I just felt alone and lost, but I just wanted to live. How do a kid think? I was told I'd be tortured or killed every day of the week. So living out of fear.
Pearson's great-aunt had been a sharecropper. Starting at age 6, Pearson spent 12-hour days picking cotton. If he didn't pick at least 100 pounds, his great-aunt would beat him. Living in the Deep South in the 1960s, nobody was coming to help.
I never thought it was going to get better. There's no escape. The authorities didn't do anything. I'm sure some people knew. My neighbors knew. They knew. No, there was no escape. That was my whole thing. I'm never going to get out of this. This is forever.
At age 13, Pearson was placed in a group home. He started lifting weights and honed his skills under the tutelage of renowned bodybuilder George Turner. At age 19, Pearson made his way to California with no place to stay and less than $100 in his pocket. After lifting weights at Venice's Muscle Beach for 3 months, he would meet one of the most legendary bodybuilders of all time, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He'd been watching Pearson lift for months.
He said to me, "You have great potential. You can be a champion someday." And I think because he saw that I was working hard, pushing myself, he saw the desire. Because the bodybuilding is a tough sport.
Pearson would become known as the Michael Jackson of bodybuilding. Over the course of a 30-year career, he would receive numerous accolades, including Mr. America, Mr. World, and Mr. Universe titles. What has your career in bodybuilding taught you about life?
Don't listen to the naysayers. You just got to trust yourself, believe in yourself, and try to, surround yourself with people that support it, that's in your corner, and they're there for you. They don't want you to fail.
Pearson's journey was recently depicted in the documentary Driven, the Tony Pearson story. The film chronicles his career up until his last competition in Las Vegas in 2020. What do you hope audiences take away from the documentary?
I just hope they see that they're not alone. So many people have so many issues. I think adults too, who never dealt with their childhood situations and things, that you can survive, that you can be a winner, that doesn't hold you back.
Driven, the Tony Pearson story, is available on Apple, Amazon, and Google Play. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Don't forget to tune into our evening news. We have more updates at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.